we have a very special guest with us today. This gentleman is an award-winning filmmaker, a documentarian, and a powerful voice in the toy collecting community, and a podcaster. Some of his films include Nintendo Quest, Powers of Grayskull, the definitive Masters of the Universe documentary, Kitty, Origins and Evolutions, and video game box art. You can hear him and his wife on their podcast, Mouthcast. His latest film, Action Figure Adventure, where he and his friend Jay look for rare toys to auction off for charity, will be released later this year. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together no matter where you are for this all-around great guy, Mr. Rob McCallum. Welcome to the show, sir.
Welcome.
Thanks. I'm really curious about how many people are clapping at your request to have them put their hands together. It would be a good stat to know if people do that, or if they just like to hear, or the sentiment of clapping. But thank you for that lovely introduction. That was incredible. You make me sound like I've done something worthwhile, or at least done a lot of things.
Oh, you have, sir. You have.
And I can see your shirt now, too. Oh, my goodness. You are a proud supporter, which doesn't surprise me because you supported a lot of my documentary endeavors, and you're now wearing an Action Figure Adventure shirt that you got from one of our partners at Retro Rags.
That's right.
It's very cool to see. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. So let's get into it real quick before we get into our topic. So the Ultimate Action Figure Auction will take place on August 13th this year at 8 p.m. Eastern. What can you tell us more about it? Like how to register, how to place bids?
Yeah, well, the simple thing is if everybody just visits www.actionfigureadventure.com, they'll see our site. It's probably not up just yet as we're recording, but it'll be up soon. And you'll get to see the 10 items that Jay culminated on his journey across the 10 episodes. And this is where it all comes down to it. This is the auction. This is the main event where everything goes off and gets sold in support of charity. All the auctions are going to go through eBay just to make it super easy for everybody. Most people are familiar with that format. It's worldwide. It's safe. PayPal, credit cards. It's just a very easy platform for people to get behind. And all the auctions will start about a week before, so around the 6th or the 7th of August, and end on the 13th. And we're putting together a live event broadcast with a host and panelists. So it'll be a little bit like a sports draft. The time will be ticking down. The auctions will be staggered 5 to 10 minutes apart from each other. You'll hear panelists chime in on the different items that are up. And then we'll see what happens as the time ticks down, what it goes for, some reactions from our panelists, and then we're on to the next item. There'll be some video packages, of course, detailing what some of these items are, but everybody in the world is going to be able to bid on these items. Now, this is a whole construct that wasn't originally planned, but is now in place because of COVID. Originally, we were going to do an old school paddle race type event live here in our hometown of London, Ontario. But we can't do that now. It doesn't make sense to try to get people into a condensed space, shoulder to shoulder, hoping everything is going to be all right. So we're going to bring it online, which means a little bit more work on our part, but we think we're going to have a few more pros on our side as well to do this versus cons. So every week we're releasing an item or two, letting people know what's out there. We've already released 2 items to the public, which should be viewed on Jay's YouTube channel and, of course, on facebook.com/actionfigureadventure. We've revealed a carded She-Ra and a boxed Megatron as well. So more is going to be revealed. We're going in ascending order, starting at number 10, going to number 1. So we think that the items are only going to get better as time ticks by and gets us closer to that magical date of August 13th at 8 p.m. when our broadcast starts and the auctions wind down.
So where did the idea come from? Why do a charity?
Well, honestly, it came from Nintendo Quest in part, which again is another documentary you mentioned at the top of the show, in which I follow Jay, whose lifelong dream was to own an entire NES collection. I gave him 30 days to do it because I couldn't afford to shoot any longer. And I said, hey, just put your life on hold for 30 days if you can and see if you can get that dream. So we went over 10,000 miles, all the mom and pop shops, and he was collecting for himself. And that was great. And over the years since its release, and it's coming up on its 5th anniversary, if you could believe that, we thought, well, what could we do as a follow-up or something in the same vein? I was like, I don't know, man. I just don't feel like it's worth following you around to do something, whether it's comic books or action figures or video games, so that something ends up on your shelf. There's got to be a bigger kind of mission here. It's not like a higher calling. So we thought, well, what about like charity? Like, he's like, well, what are we going to do? Like just give a charity organization, a bunch of action figures, and we just started talking. It's like, well, let's do an auction. He had been doing some charity work with a cosplay group that he had started with a charity that was local, and he said, you know what, let's benefit these guys. It's the Children's Health Foundation, kids action figures, that makes sense in our head. Action figures are a part of their program anyways. They give the kids a figure to hang on to so that they feel a little bit better as they go through different, daily medical procedures and things that just kind of, they need a good pick-me-up. So that action figure, when they hold Superman, they feel like they're invulnerable. When they hold, Batman, they feel like they're unstoppable, right? So it just made sense on a bunch of levels to kind of, let's go on a crusade, not for ourselves, but let's use the power of community to help raise some money and really do some good in the world. Give these characters that represent enormous power, that kind of power to the kids. So then that was kind of the basis on it. And everybody had been asking, well, if you could do a sequel to Nintendo Quest, what would you do differently? And the first answer has always been, I'd want to do it as a series, because it was always really hard to cut down the 30 days of filming all those stores that we visited into 90 minutes. So to be able to have like 10 episodes, which is what we ended up with for Action Figure Adventure, to have more time to spend in the stores is just way more interesting from a hunting perspective, to see more of the stuff that's out there. It helps the stories out a little bit because they get featured a little bit more. Because it's a little bit more in depth. And I think right now, too, everybody really likes the binge watching aspect. Once you get into a series, you really want to see what happens on the next episode. So it was just checking all the right boxes, really.
So do you have any idea what we can expect, how many episodes besides the 10? Because I know you mentioned some bonus stuff.
Yeah. So in Canada, we pre-sold it to Super Channel, and it'll be on their Jinx Esports TV platform, which had previously bought Nintendo Quest and box art from me. So we've got a really good relationship with those guys, and they're just outstanding and fantastic partners to work with. So we're really happy that Action Figure Adventures has found a home there. Because COVID has come up, it's kind of altered our timelines a bit. Originally, it was going to broadcast sometime in November, but we were near the tail end of production, and we've had to cancel a bunch that we had planned. Things got delayed a little bit as we're readjusting. The online auction, of course, is one of those adjustments that we've had to do, as well as some other in-studio cinematic shooting of the figures that was on hold for a while too. So we found a way to kind of get caught up with that in the interim. But we're hoping that it can still happen by the end of the year in Canada. Now, we have signed with a distributor for the rest of the world, but we can't announce it yet because they want to make sure we're closer to our release date and that the series is all, tidied up and tucked away so that they can shop it closer to when the buyer can get it. Then we can announce and make a really big deal. But I will tell you, the distributor that we have licensed the series to is a big fan of toys. They do really great things. We couldn't ask for a better partner. Really, it's like the dream come true in terms of, well, who should handle this? Well, these guys should handle this. Obviously, that's a great team up.
You've interviewed fans, toy collectors, and people that work in the industry. What have you learned from this experience?
That collectors all have different opinions on everything. And I think that's a great thing. Our episodes, there's 10 of them. And I know you asked about additional stuff. We're doing an after show as well. So for every main episode, we'll have a companion piece where Jay and I talk about what happened. And we'll be including some backers within that. But our episodes are kind of split 50-50 between Jay on the Hunt and discussion topics about things within the action figure world. So talking about play sets, talking about scale, talking about play features, talking about what an adult collector is. And it's not that kind of adult collector, but adult collector, a different adult toys, if you will. And you can start with a very general, vague question and talk to 20 people and get very different answers. And that's awesome because it just shows that nobody's trying to tote the line or fall into like a certain group of people or clique. Everybody's coming at this with genuine passion about what they love and what they think is best for them. And unlike video games, I think, where there's only a couple different console makers out there in history, traditionally, it's like, less than 20. There's so many different action figure lines. Even though the history of, action figures is, like 70 years-ish, there's so many different things and there's so many different aspects about them that appeal to people that it's really hard to get territorial. Like, say, I'm a Nintendo fan and Nintendo only, or I'm a Sega fan or an Atari fan. It's a lot easier to draw lines in sand that I've noticed compared to some of the gaming people that we've worked with. And I understand why those lines are drawn too. But action figures, like the lines, like the characters, like the features, like the colors and the scale varieties, there's different answers for all those different collectors. And it's really awesome. And it really provides me a lot of opportunities to tell that story and showcase all the different voices that exist in the community. So that was interesting to see all the different responses. And that's what I learned the most, because I had no idea how people were going to react to my questions.
I observed some of the filming of Action Figure Adventure, and some of the responses he was getting were truly unique from fans. I was able to talk to some fans about their collections, and it's amazing what some of the people were very passionate about when talking about action figures. So, Rob, what's your favorite toy line?
I should have known that you were going to ask this. But, it comes and goes. I mean, I'm a huge He-Man fan, obviously. Making Power of Grayskull, the definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, I would have to be a He-Man fan. I probably like classics a little bit more than vintage. I grew up having, the majority of the vintage when I was a kid. There was some family experiences that had it get sold on me and whatnot, and I started collecting again. Huge Turtle fan. I think I probably remember playing with the Playmates Turtles the most. Recently, I had acquired a lot for the sake of the series to shoot some figures. And when I held those turtles again for the first time in 30 years, it was an instant time machine. I saw all those different stories just by holding a couple of the figures in my hand, positioning the accessories in their arms. So that was pretty magical. I like Dick Tracy a lot as well, which is kind of obscure. Not a lot of characters. Never had the blank, of course. But yeah, that was another good one. I was never huge into Transformers. I had a couple. Never huge into G.I. Joe. Had a couple. Ghostbusters was a big line, and they always kind of mixed and matched with the Turtles a bit because it was similar scale and size. Batman was always a big one. So, I mean, there's no real answer what my favorite is. It's kind of like what looks cool. Recently, I'm into a lot of the Mondo stuff, like the Mondo Turtles that came out in 2017 are just awesome. I love their Batman animated series figures. And I like most of the Masters figures that they've released as well.
Yeah, I'm loving the Mondo stuff right now. Their turtle figures are the definitive turtles, in my opinion. I also just bought the Man-at-Arms figure. You've seen pretty much every toy in existence through your hunting. What is your holy grail?
Well, I don't know that I've seen every toy in existence. I'm certainly not, an expert or historian. I think I probably know a little bit more than the average person, but every fan of these lines, you get so deep into it, you just have to know every little bit of it. And I've probably got a little bit more surface knowledge spread across the table than I do depth. Some lines I know a little bit about because I get obsessed too as a collector, of course. I don't know what my grails are. I really like a lot of the Mego stuff lately. That's really fascinating. One line that I got kind of into by proxy on Power of Grayskull, I don't have a lot of it, is Big Jim. I thought some of that stuff is cool, like a lot of the real world adventure type stuff, like early G.I. Joe. And a line that I discovered that I didn't know anything about or didn't even see before that I learned from Action Figure Adventure was the official Boy Scout figures that they had. So they have a figure called Steve Scout. It's a 9-inch scale. So it's really obscure size. And they have a Cub Scout figure that goes with it. And like the Big Jim and like, the G.I. Joe adventure team and stuff, they have let's go to Radio Tower and stuff. And they have a little diorama place that it's just a really good size, really excellent made figures, lots of articulation and joints, just really obscure. But for some reason, just like holding Steve Scout, I was like, oh, this is a really cool figure. And I would have never expected that. In terms of grails, I mean, it's from doing all the research, I would say the grail that probably stands out is Marvel's Secret Wars Electro on card or Iceman, which were European releases for the Secret Wars line. They were never over here, but to get those on card would be great. They're only like $600, so it's not like anything crazy in the thousands of dollars, but they're pretty cool and rare figures that you don't see too often. And, I love superheroes growing up. That's a line from when I was growing up. It would be cool. Clark Kent Superpowers would be another one, which was a mail away exclusive too. Nothing like too crazy, like pretty standard, I'd say. But yeah, those would be, at home in my collection.
Was the Big Jim, was that like Captain Action?
I don't know Captain Action. See, now you're schooling me. Look at you.
Captain Action was like, he was just kind of like a Barbie doll size figure, but he was sold where he could be dressed up like Thor, a Loki, and Batman.
Okay.
And then there was supposedly an unproduced Rocketeer one they were going to do when the movie came out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that if it's legit, it looked pretty cool. But he was more, I think, from the 60s and 70s. And then I just happened to see it one day in Toys R Us, back when Toys R Us was around. And I was like, who's Captain Action? And the reason why I caught my eye was because he was dressed like Thor.
Right.
But I'm not too familiar with Big Jim, though. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, so Big Jim is just like a really kind of active kind of guy. He's into kung fu. He's into going off into the jungle. The big action feature with him is that when you pulled his arm, he had a bicep that would actually bulge.
Oh, wow.
And they would sell it with a rubber band so that you could see it bulge when he moved. A lot of the molds from the Big Jim line went on to get reused in the Masters line, like the Tiger, like Cringer and Battle Cat was from the Big Jim line, which in the scale makes a lot more sense in Big Jim. But when you look at He-Man, like the scale of that tiger is like crazy. It's like a horse, so that's why they put a saddle on it.
Are those the toys that they put the clay on to make the very first attempt of a He-Man figure in the doc that you showed?
Yeah, they kind of repurposed.
Repurposed,
like
yeah. Okay.
Tom, you're itching to jump in here. Come on, jump in the discussion. I see you wanting to share knowledge.
It's the Roger Sweet 3.
Yeah.
That's where those figures came from. Roger Sweet grabbed Big Jim figures, put clay on them, and they became the He-Man 3. So aside from collector's point of view, is there also a history aspect to your documentary? Like, do you go into any depth on any of the toy lines?
Well, one of the biggest questions we get asked is, how is your series different than what's out there? And there's really only two other series that I can really point to in the toy world that are out there. There's Plastic Crack, and there's the Toys That Made Us. Now, the Plastic Crack is a little bit more on the indie side. It's released on Amazon Prime and Vimeo right now. And they really focus on the collectors and the collections that they have. And there's just some like eye candy, like you wouldn't believe. If you want to talk about like toy pornography, like that's what that is. You just sit there and you just drool. You're like, oh my God, I'm in heaven right now for these, 30 to 40 minutes per episode that they got. And they're working on a season 2, which sounds exciting. And then you got the Toys That Made Us, which is a deep dive, strictly history based on how the lines that, that made us, or that we played with the most as kids, came to fruition, and what some of those ebb and flow moments were for that. For action figure adventure, like Nintendo Quest, like some of the other films I've done, it's the journey. It's the personal journey following a guy, Jay Bartlett, the guy, as we call him. How far is he going to go? What is he willing to do? What obstacles is he going to overcome? He's playing a game, right? He's got $5,000 US that he's putting off of his own money to buy these toys, and hoping that he can have a great enough margin that he can donate as much as possible when these things get auctioned off. Along the way, we talk about other stuff, but it's not a history-driven thing, mainly because I think the Toys That Made Us did a really excellent job on history. And having gone through the whole history trope of Power of Grayskull, I didn't want to do that again. Because guess what? When you do a history doc and something new happens, it's already dated. Right. We're seeing, 2 new He-Man shows? That makes Power of Grayskull dated. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the new She-Ra show in the He-Man documentary. So now it's like, oh, this was before all that came out. And I hate those asterisks. So we definitely discuss action figure history, but in broad strokes. But it's much more of a qualitative approach, opinions, and kind of discussion than it is about facts and figures. And I think because of that, like I said, with everybody chiming in on different, viewpoints on where they come from and what makes them tick and what their experience is, it becomes a much richer experience. And then you don't get overlap, because the Toys That Made Us and their, He-Man episode cover a lot of the same stuff that we do in Power of Grayskull. And it's like, okay, well, what is the yield? How is this new? Well, it's not, because the story doesn't change. It's history. Right. So we definitely needed to go in a different direction. I said, let's just go qualitative. Let's have these discussion points. These discussions are going to be evergreen. Even when you hear these topics that run, from 5 to 7 minutes each per episode, you're going to come away thinking, this is how I feel about play sets. And you're going to be able to carry on that conversation with other people. So it's not the final word on it. It's just an exploration of all these things. And it's much stronger than I think any kind of history-based show.
Nice. Cool. So what documentaries are you into? Like, what are you mentioned Toys That Made Us, but is there any docs about toys that you are interested in that you didn't make?
That I didn't make. Oh, no, I only like the stuff I make, Tom. I only like the stuff I make. I like Plastic Crack. I mean, I haven't watched the whole series yet, but it's interesting to see, how they're crafting it and what they're focusing on. Toys That Made Us Again is really cool. Some of the Lego documentaries out there. There's a Brickumentary. I don't know if you guys have seen that. There's a documentary on Monopoly called Under the Boardwalk, which is really good as well. There's some A&E, just like biographies on the history of toys that are good.
Right.
Most of the documentaries I watch are like true crime, real life. Like, you couldn't make this kind of stuff up. Truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh, do you find it difficult if you're watching a toy doc to shut off your brain and just to try to enjoy it, or like you would, or do you think like, oh, I would have done this if I was making this documentary, or do you ever have that problem?
It's a weird cycle. Usually if I get into something, those switches turn off until I get to the point where like I start thinking about how I would do it, because I'm so like into it that I'm like, wow, that was really effective. What was effective about it? Is that something that I can pull off? How would I do it differently? Okay. So usually if I can get into it, those switches go off right away and I can just sit back and enjoy it. But the second it's over, all those switches, turn back on and I start dissecting it. Little things will pull me out. If there's a focus issue, if there's color correction that's off, if camera work is, shaky, if the edit is weird, the voiceover sounds strange, or a quote is long. So it doesn't take much to pull me out of the enjoyment, but it's because I'm in this industry and I look at stuff like that all the time. So as long as I get hooked, I'm in, like anybody.
So what can you tell us about Mr. Dressup? I know that's your latest project.
Yeah, well, we started shooting our documentary on Mr. Dressup at the same time as Action Figure Adventure. So I've been doing both of these in tandem. So shooting a 10-episode series for Action Figures and then Mr. Dressup as a feature at the same time has been a lot to manage. Most people probably aren't going to know Mr. Dressup unless you're from Canada. He's like Canadian royalty. He's like our biggest probably television star ever. He's kind of like Canada's Mr. Rogers. He hosted a preschool show for 2 to 5 year olds from 67 to 96, and then 10 more years in reruns, over 4,000 episodes produced. And nobody's ever done a documentary on him. So last couple of years, I mean, we've seen some documentaries on Mr. Rogers come out, one documentary and one narrative. And, I thought, well, man, how come Canada doesn't have their version of this out yet? And I started digging into it and went down the rabbit hole. And not only did I find really fascinating history about how it was created, but there's a really interesting legacy story surrounding it as well that I think is really global and universal. And we can't wait to share that with everybody because it's not just about how Canadian kids grew up and what they watched and how they made that show, which was like for pennies. They had like a $25 costume budget, which you'd think for like a show called Mr. Dressup, they would have more money in costumes. But the show is about resourcefulness and doing what you can with your imagination and picking up household common items and making more out of it with your mind. So
is that on YouTube?
A lot of that. There are a few episodes on YouTube, but they're regionally locked to Canada right now.
Oh, okay.
So unless you live in Canada or you're really tech savvy and can use a VPN, you're probably not going to be able to catch that out. But I mean, here's one cool, fascinating thing about Mr. Dressup. They shot it live to tape. So it was like a theatrical performance with 3 cameras shooting live, nonstop, all the way through, 30 straight minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So they did a lot of work to get that working. There's puppets in it. They did drawing segments. There's musical guests. So queuing that up and doing multiple episodes a week is a lot of work.
Have you been getting a good buzz from people, like fellow Canadians, who are like, oh, I love that show as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, our Facebook page is going nuts for it. I mean, we launched our page in April, and within 2 weeks, we had over 10,000 likes. So it's
very nice.
It's going crazy. We just signed an exec producer to come on board who works for one of Canada's like biggest and most well-known production companies. So he's going to come on board and help shepherd this. We've got options when we're done already to have it screened theatrically, possibly broadcast homes. We're looking at, of course, streaming and, home video as well.
That's
so
great.
It's the no-brainer that finally happened kind of deal. Like, of course, there should be a documentary on this because it impacted 5 generations of Canadians. How come there wasn't? Well, now there is. And it's like, of course, we'll, take it and help get it out there. So just the name alone has people excited, which always is a really good sign.
Right. I grew up in the 80s, and Canadian TV I saw was Degrassi. I would love to see like a documentary about that, about the history of that whole series.
I'm sure there's something out there, despite growing up relatively close to Toronto. I'm in London, which is 2 hours away. I never got into Degrassi. Really? I never watched junior high or regular. I know friends of mine that did, and they'd go visit like the school that they filmed at 2 hours away from here and stuff. But I know names like Joey Jeremiah, but I don't know anything about the show at all. I'm completely lost for whatever reason. But I hear that Degrassi is that weird touchstone for a lot of Americans when they think of Canadian culture. It's like, oh, okay,
yeah. It was weird because that was our health class, and the teacher would just come in and put the show on, and that was health in grammar school.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Here's a fun little action figure sort of fact for you guys. Allison Court was a series regular on Mr. Dressup when she was 9, 10, and so on. She was also in Follow That Bird, which is the first Sesame Street movie. Then she went into star on Big Comfy Couch, but you guys would probably know her.
I know Big Comfy Couch.
Most fans would probably know her as the voice of Jubilee in the animated X-Men show, though, from the 90s, as well as a ton of video game work after and other series, too. So she's awesome. She was Lunette on Big Comfy Couch.
She's the clown. Was she the clown?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I remember that show.
Yeah, there you go. We're connecting, Ian. We're connecting.
Well, Rob, I know you're pressed for time, so thank you for joining us. It's always been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Thank you once again, and thanks for all your help. Every time we seem to be filming, you seem to grab a light stand or grab some cases of gear and help move it, and you provided some necessary illumination when we got our chance to interview Kevin Smith for Action Figure Adventure, so that was cool. And you snapped behind-the-scenes shots, too, for us, which was pretty awesome of you.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Give my best to the missus and your family, and I'm looking forward to the next episode of Mouthcast.
Oh, well, yeah, that's on hiatus due to COVID right now. It's a tough one to get out there when we're caught up. Maybe we'll return to visit it, maybe we won't, but it was fun while we got to do it. We know that for sure. So
yeah, definitely.
We'll try. Cool. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.
Take care. So, Tom, since we were just discussing toy docs with Rob, and the Toys That Made Us does focus on the old toys. I was thinking recently how when you're a toy collector, you never get out of toys. So are there toys today that still make us?
Are you asking what toys still make us?
Yeah, no idea what I said. Yeah, so the Toys That Made Us is all about the toys when we were kids, like He-Man, Star Wars and stuff.
Right.
But when you're a collector, it's kind of like you never get out of toys. We're still collecting or buying or whatever people do with their toys. They open them, shoot them, play with them, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What toys today, new toys, would be the toys that made us? Would it be Pops? Would it be Reaction? Would it be, in your opinion? Because I'm sure everybody has. It could be the recreations of the He-Man. It could be the new Star Wars. But like for you, what do you think? Do you think that's a correct saying that toys continue to make us even though we're supposed to be grown-ups?
Oh, definitely. For me personally, Masters of the Universe Classics, although as an adult now, I'm like Rob, I am drawn to the Mondo stuff. Their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle line is my definitive Turtles. To this day, I still haven't purchased another turtle item after those came out. I am drawn to the Mesco stuff now, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
It is similar to Mego, but it's so much more advanced. Like just the other day, I was looking at the Mesco Ghostbusters, and all the intricate detail, the lights, the sounds, the clothing, the attention to detail, the articulation. These are not the toys that made us, but the toys that I
continue to make us.
The toys that grew with us.
It's good. That's good. Yeah, that's a good point. The toys grew up. We grew up.
Right. Here's how I've always looked at Masters of the Universe. When I was a child, I had the vintage. That was my introduction to life. 2000X, I was in college. And now in classics, I'm an adult. So every generation of my life, there's always been a He-Man figure.
Every generation has a story.
Yeah.
Or a beginning, sorry. Prequels there.
One of my favorite characters from the classics line is King He-Man. Like when I'm old and gray, that and my Dark Knight Returns Frank Miller Batman will be the only two action figures I'll be playing with at 70.
So classic He-Man is the modern day.
Yes.
Okay, because it's funny because you would think classic is like the vintage line, just from an outsider view. Like,
it was loosely based on the vintage line,
right? But they were made more recently,
right?
And
10 years ago now.
It's funny because I keep saying this to you, but like the more we do this show, the more I get into He-Man, and like I liked it as a kid. Don't get me wrong, but like I sent you a text the other day of that picture of the book. I was like, what is this? And you were like, it was a newspaper strip. I was like, I didn't even know they had those. There's just, the more I learn about it, which is one of the things I could watch and rewatch Rob's He-Man doc, because I don't have that much knowledge. So it's like, it's enjoyable where you can rewatch something over and over. And it's like, I'm getting that collecting bug where it's like, I want to start collecting He-Man, and I haven't bought anything, but I'm like, some of these things are pretty cool. And, it's once you get that collecting bug, it's like, there's no cure for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I was talking to someone from a shared universe the other day, and he was recently got the collecting bug. I mean, it's who you are, really. Sometimes you're a collector, sometimes you're an admirer.
And you know what the hardest part is? I find if you say you're good for a while, you haven't bought anything. Once you buy one thing, it's just like a snowball. You just can't stop.
Right.
It's like, oh, this is one more. And it's just like the next thing you know, you're getting yelled at because you bought too much stuff. I have that habit. It's just like, once I get started collecting, I'm in deep. I'd be buying every He-Man I could if I could. But
so what about you? What's the toys that are making you today?
Well, that's the thing. I haven't really bought too many new toys. It's not that there's none out there. There are some really cool looking toys out there, but it would have to be probably something I would find in like a Disney park. They have like exclusive Star Wars and Indiana Jones toys there. So it would probably be something I find there. But I think right now it's really just learning even about the old stuff. So it's learning about this background on Masters and all this other stuff. It's looking on Instagram right now and seeing the new and the old, and then and just being like, oh, I kind of remember this guy. I remember the Battle Damage He-Man. And then it's actually the other day I was at my family's house. My brother was talking about it. He was telling his kid how you should be grateful for what you had, and how there was this one toy he always wanted but he never got, and he couldn't remember what it was. It was a Tonka toy. It's called Big Duke, and just like he couldn't remember the name, but he was like, I know it had a Bronco, and he went camping. I'm like, that is the worst bit of information to try to look up a toy on. But after three of us doing just like Google searches, we found out what it was, and he was like, that's the one. So it's kind of cool just going back and just learning stuff. I think right now that's what makes me, is just learning about the history of toys. I just like history of any sort, so I'm kind of a nerd, but it's cool.
Yeah, that's why I'm a big fan of documentaries,
especially if they're done well.
Exactly.
And that's what I loved about the He-Man one he did, because it just, for a guy going in who doesn't know too much, I really did learn a lot. With Star Wars, I kind of feel like if you've read any of Steven Sansweet's books, especially Star Wars from concept to screen to collectible, you kind of learn the whole history if you read it when the book came out. So there weren't any surprises in that episode for me. But yeah, if I could learn something new that I didn't know, I love finding stuff out.
Darth Vader's Luke's father.
The kid.
No.
Spoiler.
It's true. Spoilers, yeah. I remember Turtle Power by Randall Lobb, who also assisted Rob on Powers of Grayskull. Turtle Power was a great definitive. I mean, I've spoken to Kevin Eastman about it, and he said it's the greatest documentary about the turtles ever made.
Wow. That's cool coming from a co-creator.
Yeah. Although it is interesting to find out, though, that the episode of the Turtles on the Toys That Made Us was supposedly the catalyst for TMNT Ronin that's coming out in August. But another interesting tidbit. So everyone doesn't know who the mystery Ronin turtle is.
Mm-hmm.
So a few years ago, Peter Laird did a short story in a comic called Plasma Cafe. In it was Donatello, an old, elderly Donatello, sitting in, I guess, his porch in a field. He's reminiscing about his family. He starts crying because of everyone he's lost. So my guess is that, at least I'm hoping, that Donatello is the mysterious Ronin turtle.
Guess we'll find out eventually.
Yeah, I can't wait for that book.
You ever kind of think what would be a cool toy doc? Like you watch them now, or you go for the Toys That Made Us. I'd really like to see them cover the real Ghostbusters. I'd really like to see them cover. I kind in some of these toy lines like Remco's Universal Monsters. I don't know if you get an hour out of that, but I would love to see more of that stuff, because I felt like the second season didn't have much for me. I'm not a Hello Kitty person, and so I think I watched one episode. I'm not even a wrestling fan, but I did watch that one just because I did have some of those toys when I was a kid.
I remember interviewing Brian Volk Weiss for Toy Lines, and he didn't even think the show was going to go past one season.
Really?
I asked him the same question you just asked him. What about Transformers? What about G.I. Joe? What about this line or that line? He said it all takes time. He's like, time, and if he can actually find people that were associated with the line itself.
Right.
Like, for some reason, I mean, speaking with Blake Wright a couple of episodes ago, he said he found people for LJN.
That's correct, yeah, and they did the Temple of Doom toys.
They did that, and Thundercats.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it's not funny, actually, it's kind of sad. The sad thing is about the Temple of Doom toys, I had the chance to buy an indie one once at a place called Valley Fair, and I didn't buy it. And there was 5 toys created, 3 were only released, which was Indy, Moolarama, and the Thuggy, and Short Round and Willie Scott were never released, and I never got them, so I kind of kicked myself to this day for not buying it, or have my mother buy it when we were there. But lots of tears. Toys are made of tears.
The LGN people.
It's like when I'm sorry. It's
no.
As I say, you have a favorite toy, and what if you lose it? I was at the beach one time, and I had my Star Wars toys. I had the Luke and the X-Wing outfit. I was playing with him in the sand, and I buried him, and then I couldn't find him. And I was like, oh my God. I started getting really nervous. And I thought I found them. It was a friggin' peach pit. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Somebody buried a peach pit? I did find my toy. But it makes me think, I was a kid then. Actually, it happened last week. But no, I was a kid then. And it makes me think of this book called, I believe it's pronounced Rover Random. And J.R.R. Tolkien wrote it for his son when his son lost his toy dog. So it wasn't an actual dog that ran away. It was a toy. And the toy gets lost, comes to life, and it battles like this wizard and all this stuff. And it, comes back to the kid. So it's interesting how toys just have such a meaning to us, especially when you're a little kid. You got that favorite toy, you take it everywhere. And that's like the biggest fear of your life, losing that toy. Especially, that's your only fear as a kid. Well, maybe the boogeyman, but like, that's what you're worried about. It's like, I just want my toys. I wish life was that simple still.
That's one of the reasons. Like, I always had a strict no outside policy for my toys.
So your toys were indoor toys.
They were.
Toys.
I mean, except for my vintage He-Man figure, he went everywhere with me.
It's kind of like in a Cloak and Dagger. You ever see that movie?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He carries a little role-playing figure of Jack Black.
Yeah.
And it's a great. I don't know why they haven't remade that movie. By the way,
Dabney Coleman, because it's a perfect movie.
Henry Thomas from E.T. I mean, the movie's great, but the one thing they didn't cover is that there was no basement in the Alamo, and they were there, and they didn't even talk about it. I don't get that part, but anyway.
So, what other documentaries have you seen about toys? Have you seen Plastic Galaxy?
I have not, and I guess I'm a snob because I feel like I know enough about Star Wars, having read Stan Sweet's book and his column in the Star Wars magazines over the years. But I would, if it was on Netflix or whatever, I would watch it. I would love to see one about the Raiders line. I always go back to that, but I really would. So would you say Plastic Galaxy?
Yeah, it's all about Star Wars.
About vintage or modern?
Vintage.
Both? Okay.
Well, probably not the Black Series, only because it came out a few years ago.
Okay.
I know they did a lot of work at Rancho Obi-Wan.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's where interviews
Stan
there.
Sweet. I mean, that guy's collection is just like, I couldn't imagine.
Insane.
Can you imagine owning that much stuff of one collection? That's like,
where would you put it?
Well, he had to convert. First, he had his house.
Right.
And he had to put on another floor and then another floor. And then when he went to work for Lucasfilm, he moved to Marin County and he bought, I guess, like a farmland, and he had an old chicken barn converted into the museum. There's no chickens in it now, but it was fully converted. And he still has to swap out items and rotate them for display because people give him fan-made things. And I don't know how you could remember at that point what you don't have, what you do have. I don't have the money to do it either. But it's I know you can do tours there. You look on the website because I think it's a nonprofit, but I would love to see that collection because there's just like so much there. I don't think you could guess, probably not see it all in a day, because really when you look at the cases, there's probably so much in one case just to really absorb it all. You would need the time probably to, like people who go to art museums or museums, you would want that time to like soak it in and just be like, oh, wow, I had the toy, get this memory, start remembering things.
Interesting story about Lucasfilm. I knew a deputy that before he became a deputy, he was a construction worker. He was actually helping build Lucasfilm Ranch.
Wow.
One of his coworkers, so the way Lucasfilm is, some of it is actually buried underground.
Really?
Yeah. So they were digging the space for it, and one of his coworkers fell and died.
Holy, no kidding.
Yeah. George Lucas found out about it, and to this day, he still pays for that family's welfare. He's felt so bad about this. He's put their kids through college. He's paid for their home. I mean, he really stepped up and took care of this family.
But that's, that's really decent of him. And he gets a lot for a lot of things. But I never knew that. And that's an extremely generous thing to do.
Yeah.
That's a good guy right there to, God bless him for that. That's, I'm sure that people are appreciative, but it's very sad that it happened. But that's incredible. So, Tommy, let me ask you this.
Okay.
So our mutual friend, Rich, him and I used to have this discussion because it's not really a debate because it's an opinion. And I've learned at this point in life, everybody has their own opinion. Who is cooler to you, the hooded Cobra Commander or the silver dome face one? Which one do you think looks cool? I just want to know who looks cooler.
Well, they both have their positives and negatives.
Yeah.
But personally, I'm a big fan of the hooded Cobra Commander.
That's right. See, all right, may not have an opinion, but opinion has too, because I always felt hooded Cobra Commander is much more menacing.
So check this out. So Rob Liefeld is a huge G.I. Joe fan. A couple of his issues from Youngblood, he had my favorite character, Die Hard, in a hood. I thought he looked the best with that hood. I was like, oh, Cobra Commander reference right there. I mean, don't get me wrong. The reflective plate face, very intimidating.
That's great. You can't wear a hood in battle. It's gonna blow right off.
If I was a villain, I'd probably use that look.
Yeah.
Personally,
I think if you're sitting on your throne, not the toilet, but your throne, and you got a Joe in front of you, and you're, about to unleash some terror, that's the look you want to go for. But if you're going into battle, you got to go with the silver face. And Rich was always a fan of that. I wasn't a fan of the battle armor Cobra Commander. Do you remember that one?
No, yeah. He came out after the movie, and I was like, "Is this a different guy? I mean, how's a snake gonna fit in that armor?"
Yeah, and it's just I don't know why they did that, but you know what it was? It was the HasLabs. They're releasing in the classified line that you mentioned, a domed Cobra Commander. It's going on for pre-order until 7/30/2020. And shipping in 12/15, and it's a cool looking toy, but that just brought me back to the whole thing of which one, hood or mask. But a mask is effective. Like Darth Vader would look stupid with a hood,
right?
I think now. I mean, anyway, we would have known because we were introduced with the mask, but that mask has it's kind of got like that samurai helmet, but you could almost think of the face almost like a skeleton. So, it's.
Have you seen the new Destro?
Isn't it gold?
Yeah, I call him Bling Destro.
Bling Destro.
Or Pimp Destro.
Pimp Destro. So and he's pimping out the Baroness, but what's the deal with the gold?
I don't know. It's just, it might be in G.I. Joe lore. I'm not a big G.I. Joe person. So
I saw a picture of it, and, this is what I always thought about Destro. Dude's got a gold, whatever color plate on his face, over his head. Like, how does he talk? Because in the cartoon, that thing just, I think, moves like it's part of him. I don't think that really happened. Was he like nickel plated or something? It's weird, that character.
Well, he's got millions. He's an arms dealer, so he probably figured it out.
Instead of getting that like gold or silver tooth, he's like, no, doing the whole head. I don't care.
Yep.
Cost what? Just pimp out the Baroness again.
That's right.
So
he likes his bling.
He does. He likes it on his head. So, what do we got with news today? Any news?
Oh, we got tons. It is all good news, which is nice for a change. So, ready for this? Netflix just ordered a season of Usagi Yojimbo, the animated series. The series takes place in a far future set in a world that mixes modern high-tech images with classic Japanese references. It follows the teenage rabbit samurai Yuki, descendant of the great warrior Miyamoto Usagi, on his epic quest to become a true samurai. But he isn't alone. He leads a ragtag team of misfit heroes, including a roguish bounty hunter, a cunning ninja, an acrobatic pickpocket, and his faithful pet lizard. Usagi Yojimbo will be based at 88 Pictures, the same people that gave us Troll Hunters, Fast and the Furious Spy Racers. And the whole show will be CGI with Stan Sakai as producer.
They made a Fast and the Furious cartoon?
Oh, I think it's might be the one with the snail.
Oh, Turbo. Was that Turbo? Was it Ryan Reynolds was in that one? I think he voiced the snail.
In the movie.
Yeah, the movie. I mean, yeah, the snail movie.
Right.
It's a racing snail. Netflix is just going all out, buying up everything.
Yeah, it's nice.
I heard they bought your life story too.
They're super in debt. Yeah, probably. Well, I'll be honest with you. They bought my house.
Did they really?
Or they gave me money to buy my house. So.
That's cool.
Yeah, it pays to invest, kids, especially early on.
You can't just spend all your money on toys.
No, you got to think about money money for future toys.
That's right. Like you said, it's in Batman, Jack Nicholson. Think about the future.
Yeah.
89. Tommy, have you heard about The Little Prince?
I have.
But
there's two versions.
Well, I'm not talking about Prince now.
No, not
right.
the singer.
Yes,
no, the little Prince.
He's awesome, by the way, Prince, the singer. But so you have heard about The Little Prince. I thought I had one up on you.
Nope. USA Network. See, there's two versions that at least that's what I've been exposed to. There's one version that made a movie a few years ago from France.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one that was regular pencil and ink cartoon that was on the USA Network.
Really? Well, see, these two, the pencil ink one was that from 1974?
God, I don't remember.
Or you're talking, or the other one, are you talking about Netflix?
Yes, there is a Netflix one.
So is there 3 or 2 you're talking?
I'm only aware of the 2. Okay. I know the French version. I don't know if the original was the French version, but the one with the movie that recently came out that was CGI.
Yes, that's actually the one that's on Netflix is in modern when she's with the aviator, the little girl, the CGI, when he's telling the story of how he meets the Little Prince, that's stop motion, which I thought was a great blend. I recently watched that movie and it's got a big cast: Jeff Bridges, Rachel McAdams, James Franco, Benicio del Toro, Ricky Gervais, Albert Brooks, Paul Rudd, and Paul Giamatti. There was another one made in 1974 where Gene Wilder played the fox. The only other name I recognized was Clive Reville. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, but does the name sound familiar at all?
No, not to me.
He was the original voice of the Emperor in The Empire Strikes Back. Remember when the Emperor's face was like an old woman with orangutan eyes?
Right.
Before they replaced it, he was the original voice of the Emperor. And I know I was like, Clive Revelle, that name sounds so familiar. So that's just like a little piece of negative 2 cents worth of information I have. But the Boss Fight Studios putting out a Little Prince toy. And the figure looks great. He comes on a piece of the asteroid he lives on. He comes with his fox, the rose, and a bell jar. The book itself, I actually recently bought because I liked the movie so much. And it's very popular in Paris. The book has sold over 200 million copies. There's 14 million books in France alone, and there's been over 300 official translations. It even has its own there's his own store dedicated to him in France, Paris. So it's actually pretty cool. It's a pretty cool movie.
Yeah, the TV show was also great. It was kind of like a piece of art growing up. Like it was one of those. It was definitely made for kids, but at the same time, adults could enjoy it and appreciate it.
Yes,
it always kind of reminded me of the animated Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
That type of style. Type of style, but it had more. I mean, he went on adventures. He was a little boy, but it had more heart than action. So
that sounds like an actual TV series.
It was.
Okay, so that's actually interesting. I never heard of that. The movie itself is like the book, and it's interesting when you watch the movie or read the book how it's a cross between seeing life through the eyes of a child, the eyes of a grown-up who forgets things, about the less important things. He's not focused on that. Excellent, though. The pre-order is the pre-order The Little Prince It's going to be $37.99. It's expected to ship in the first quarter of 2021. However, they did say on the site that because of the current pandemic, they're not 100% guaranteed it's shipping at that time. Yeah, I'm a fan of the book. I'm reading it now. I think it's pretty cool.
So Walmart Con begins tomorrow at 10 a.m., which features products from Mondo Collectibles, McFarlane Toys, Factory Entertainment, and Funko.
Walmart
So I know,
Con.
yeah, I know we'll be talking more about cons at a later time, but right now, how do you feel about all these small companies doing their own conventions?
Is it in the store?
No, it's online. It's going to be
like an online convention.
Right, one of those interactive things.
I think we have no choice at the moment.
Yeah.
I also think,
but why not have just one like Comic-Con? Why not just do it at Comic-Con? Because
Well,
Super
that's a
7
good
has
point.
their own.
That's true.
DC's doing their own. Apparently, Marvel will be at D23, which is smart.
I know what I think about it. I mean, yeah, it would make sense to do it all the same day. Maybe it's because they want to get their day to get whatever their product is out. But the way I see it is, if so many people aren't going, and so many people hit this site, is it going to crash? Or everything sell out at once? Because that's usually an issue when it comes to things. Disney sells these like keys in the store. They're collector keys. And they sell out right away. And I think they did something online once, and it was just like the joke. The site couldn't handle the amount of buys they were getting. So is this going to happen for any of these companies with their computers being the virtual convention, I guess? I mean, we don't really know. I guess it's just a wait and see kind of thing. But it is an interesting way to have a convention during COVID.
Yeah, I mean, these are weird times. So, I mean, we're adapting, which is nice. But yeah, I'm kind of curious now to see if it'll crash or if anybody that wants to participate can.
I guess that was negative of me to come out with, but
it's
really what I thought of.
It's a reality we're living in today. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
people wearing masks, spreading disease.
It's like, remember in the day when you would buy tickets, you'd have to call up to get concert tickets, or trying to get through the line, and you get that busy signal, to piss you off. It's just like, come on.
Yeah, we're old, folks.
We are.
We're old, but we're thinking like a new generation for our sponsors.
Tommy,
yes.
Just remember you mentioned those Little People toys for Masters of the Universe.
Yep, they're available on pre-sale. Yes,
they're doing a Lord of the Rings set, which is actually kind of cool.
Nice.
I love Lord of the Rings. It's going to be released September 2020. The pre-orders are now. It's at $34.99. You can get it at the Big Bad Toy Store. The set includes Frodo, Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli, Strider, and Auron, and they're adorable. My only complaint is that I wish there was 2 sets coming out, because I would like to have seen all the hobbits involved, Merry, Pippin, and Sam. They could have thrown in Gollum, just make him cute instead of scary looking. You don't want to give that to a baby, but it's a cool looking toy set. I think it's pretty well. And if my nephew was a baby, I would be giving that to him, or a preschool or whatever. I'd be giving that to him just to annoy my brother and to get him into Lord of the Rings, so I can talk to somebody in my family about Tolkien.
Now, we saw these at Toy Fair last year, or this past February. The 20th anniversary X-Men figures from Marvel Legends are now available for purchase at HasbroPulse.com. These are the likeness of the actors from that first X-Men movie, and they have swappable heads, the first class generation of actors. So you can have both Patrick Stewart from the first X-Men and McAvoy's head on the second.
Dude, don't lose your head. Just like the Headless Horseman. The Headless Picard. Mezco's King Kong is coming out. The Kong of Skull Island. This is based on the 1930s Kong, thank God. It's on pre-order. It's actually $40, which is a pretty decent price for
something that big.
17 inches. It's gorgeous. 28 points of articulation, 2 interchangeable heads, 5 hands. Now I know gorillas and humans only have 2. This is because it comes with 2 sets of hands and an additional hand to put into one arm, which would hold the figurine that it comes with of Andaro, played by Fay Wray, and it comes with a set of shackles, which are supposedly real chains. I saw a picture today on the Instagram of Mitchell Wu, his photography site, where I think that was his. I think he had that, and I guess he was doing a promotion for it. But that toy is so cool looking.
We're not big on rumors here at Toy Lines, but this rumor, or actually, we have 2 rumors today. I'm just going to throw it out there because it's a great topic to discuss.
Throw it like a gorilla throws his poop.
Hayden Christensen will reprise his role as Anakin Skywalker in the Disney Plus series Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I like it.
I do too.
Here's what I was thinking about this. He gets a lot of garbage for that movie, which I don't think is fair because, like we said, and I'm not trying to trash Lucas after I just praised him, his directing is faster, more intense. He did how he was told to direct. You can't say he ruined the movie. It's just not right. I think it's cool if they have him back because at this point you would figure Obi-Wan's a little grayer. He's been on Tatooine. He's probably got guilt, PTSD, and I like to think that he's haunted by it. Maybe every time he closes his eyes, he sees Anakin, when his limbs cut off. Maybe he remembers the fight. Maybe he sees him, even though he left him to burn. Maybe Anakin comes to him all burnt and scarred up and just mentally, it's Obi-Wan, but is mentally tormenting himself. And maybe they'll do flashbacks, a little CGI de-aging. So, I don't know what they're going to do, but if this rumor is true, I think it's kind of cool. It's an interesting rumor too, because it's a good sign that Disney's trying to do things right.
And along that lines, did you hear about the Bad Batch?
I did. I didn't look into it.
Produced by David Filoni, follows the adventure of an elite experimental clone force during the aftermath of the Clone Wars. This ragtag group will take on daring missionary missions as they find a new purpose in a galaxy far, far away.
So this makes me think, I don't know why, if the reference is accurate, of like the Dirty Dozen.
Right.
Or a type of movie like that. It sounds kind of cool. I do need to go back and watch Clone Wars. I admit it.
Now, which version? The Disney Plus version that's on now, or the Dave Filoni version?
Yeah, I need to watch that again. I really liked the
Genndy Tartakovsky.
That show was incredible. I loved it.
I loved it.
It was, to me, that's the Clone Wars.
Exactly. It was perfection at its Star Wars finest.
Yeah.
Taking nothing away from Filoni. He's done
Not
some amazing things with the Clone Wars.
And The Mandalorian.
And The Mandalorian. Oh, especially The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But Genndy's Clone Wars, my favorite episode, or my second favorite thing in Star Wars, was that short episode where Anakin fully becomes a Jedi Knight.
Is that when they cut the braid off with the lightsaber?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, he just had so much action crammed into so few minutes, but story as well. And that's the thing. Usually it's one or the other. Usually it's just explosions. He put everything into this, and they were excellent. I loved them. I don't think they're out on DVD either. It's just kind of...
All right, so here's the story on that. So apparently, before Lucas sold to Disney, he went into the archives and said, this is canon, this is not canon. So apparently, Genndy's Clone Wars is not official canon.
Okay.
You can watch it, you can find them on YouTube.
Yep.
But as far as a linear Star Wars story, they're not a part of.
And that's what's funny about canon is that, George Lucas created Star Wars, so he gets to say what's canon or not. I get it. Right. Extended universe doesn't count. Basically, it was his ideas, it's his concept. But as a fan, you could always consider it is, just as you can always consider something isn't.
you're personal.
Yeah, so like, I guess Disney stuck with that when they bought it, and they just went with that. But it's a shame because even if that was considered this brief part of Clone Wars, even like in the Filoni era, it would be cool because just the amount of work and it was like just beautiful. Like when Mace Windu took on that whole army of droids, and it was just like you're seeing him do stuff that you've never seen before a Jedi do. You're just like, holy crap.
Yep, Samuel Jackson missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually does sound kind of cool. That show. I'd like to check that out.
And our second rumor. So for all you gamers out there, apparently the release date for PlayStation 5 is rumored to be released on November 20th with a hefty price tag of $500.
What do you get for $500 besides
the PlayStation 5? That's it.
Like
a console and one controller, probably.
But like, is there Netflix and play DVDs or any of that kind of stuff, or is it just
there's two? There's going to be two versions. There's one that's all digital, and then there should be another one, I believe, with a DVD slot.
And they'd both be priced at $500.
Well, they're saying, according to this, they're saying that there may be either a $50 price difference or a $100 price difference.
Wow, that's why I don't play video games anymore, because the more they create new systems,
they're too advanced for me.
Yeah,
I'm still a Pac-Man, Turtles in Time Nintendo guy.
Yeah, give me the era from Atari 2600 up to Super Nintendo. And I love the classic NES. Super Nintendo is excellent. I kind of stopped there because when they started putting more buttons on controllers, I couldn't work it. Honestly, I can. And when you switch to like the POV view, I might as well just put the controller down and go have a drink because I can't do that. It's like I can't see. If anybody is a fellow Disney geek, and if you're a fan of Hocus Pocus, the movie, by the way, not the actual thing, Funko has a exclusive items coming out for this Halloween from Spirit Halloween stores. There will be a Billy Butcherson pop. Billy Butcherson was kind of like that zombie who comes up from the graveyard. He is played by Doug Jones, or an early young Doug Jones. And they're making Pez of Winifred, Sarah, and Mary. So I know Hocus Pocus has become a lot more popular over the years. They made a book sequel to it, and they're supposed to reboot it. It hasn't been really any words. I think Kenny Ortega is going to direct it again. But, it's got a pretty big following. Usually it was formerly the ABC Family Network and is now Freeform, which I hate the name of that channel. Or whatever they call it nowadays, plays it nonstop in around October. But Spirit has a ton of official Hocus Pocus merchandise. Just be careful with it. You might turn into a cat.
Okay, folks, just want to give out a shout out to Brian Salvatore for our music, Shared Universe Podcast Studio. And once again, thank you to our guest, Rob McCallum of Action Figure Adventure. Please join the conversation at toyspodcast@gmail.com. Listen to us at Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Podbeam, Spotify. And now, as of today, we are on iHeartRadio.
Nice. And
Please
if you can't do that, folks, get a can with a string and another tin can. Just put it to your ear. We'll take care of it.
Please subscribe to us or give us a rating or do both. Follow us on social media at Twitter at Toylines, Instagram at Toylines, and Facebook at Toylines or Toy Shelf Magazine. Stay safe and play with your toys. Take care, everybody.
Take care, guys.